What is going on, guys? Vanity here, back with the first episode of a new series I'm launching named Lessons of Life. This episode will be covering the auditory illusion that is the Shepard's tone. The tone is a sound that comprises multiple sine waves separated by an octave laid on top of each other. In essence, there is a high-pitched tone, a middle-pitched tone, and a low-pitched tone that all rise in pitch until they loop back to the start. By the end of the loop, the highest pitched tone has become quiet, the middle pitched tone stays the same, and the lowest pitched tone has become louder. Because you can always hear two tones rising in pitch, your brain skips the loop and believes the tone is infinitely ascending. Here's an audio example of the tone. Here's the tone from a YouTube video which is listed and linked below. I'm going to play the tone and repeat the video a few times. As the video repeats, you'll hear that it sounds as if it's only continuing to climb higher and higher in pitch. Weird, right? This video is again listed and linked below, so feel free to try it out for yourselves. Some people may be able to perceive where the tone loops. I think it's important to understand for any audio or visual illusions, there are always exceptions. But I think this perhaps can make it even more interesting, the fact that some people can hear or spot the trick, and some cannot. I noticed upon researching the Shepard's tone that there wasn't actually a tutorial in Ableton Live showing you how to create one, other than an 8-year-old video that fails to demonstrate the looping of the tone. I myself can hear the loop in the Shepard's tone, especially in this one I'm about to show you, and as I just said, many people can, which I think is important to note beforehand. I'd now like to show you how to create your own Shepard's tone in Ableton Live. The project is also available for a free download in the pinned comments below, and unless I've missed it, this is the first free Shepard tone project inside of Ableton Live that's available online, so I really hope it helps. Before we dig into this project, I'd like to state that it has been made in collaboration with Diego Moreno. Links to his music and work are in the description below. The project can be broken down into 5 sections or groups in Ableton: normal, down, and up, which both form and strengthen the basic sound of the Shepard tone, a mechanical channel, which is a mechanical noise taken from freesound.org, and the siren group, which is a dub siren effect, again being used to enhance the effect. This is how it all sounds together. We'll start with the top 3 groups. In fact, just the top group here, titled Normal, is the true Shepard tone. Everything else is either duplicates or added effects to thicken and strengthen the sound. This group contains 4 separate sine wave tones, all separated by an octave, from A1 to A4, as you can see here. If we go into the clip's envelope sections, you can see here that there is a pitch bend that rises up until the end of the tone. Now, this exact setup is repeated across all 4 notes, so they're all rising in pitch by the same amount. The only differences between them, other than them being separated by an octave, is that A1, the lowest note, starts at complete silence and rises throughout the 8 bars to 0 dB, and the opposite is true of A4, the highest note. So essentially, the lowest note fades in and the highest note fades out. This is what creates the endless rising effect of the Shepard tone. Imagine an audio version of a barber's pole. This is perhaps the best example of how the Shepard tone works that I can give. The tone is constantly seeming to rise without actually ever going anywhere. Back to the project. Moving on to the down group, which is an exact copy of the normal group I just took you through, with a few effect changes on this group. Firstly, the biggest difference is that the group is pitched down an octave using sound shifter from waves, as you can see here. I've then just got an EQ which is rolling out everything under 100 hertz to clean up those bass frequencies. As we've got 12 channels all playing sine waves at different frequencies, that low end can get muddied up very quickly. To keep the sound clean as well as the effect working, this EQ has been applied on both this group and the up group, as you'll see now. And as you can imagine, the last group titled Up is again an identical copy of the normal with everything pitched up an octave. These two groups, the up and the down group, are purely just to both thicken the sound out and enhance the effect. Again, the link to the project is listed below, so feel free to have a play around with everything in here to grasp a better understanding of the Shepard's tone. You may have noticed that I've got a flanger on here, which is also on the down channel too. This is just providing a typical flanger sounding effect that helps to create a more interesting sound out of the bland sine wave tones. The next couple of sounds I've branded as extras, as they're in here purely to add some flair to the project. They're not actually needed to create the Shepard's tone. The first one is a mechanical elevator sound taken from freesound.org and sounds like this without the effects. And then with the effects. The first thing I'm doing is monoing the sound, as it's primarily a low frequency centered sound. I want it staying in the center of the mix and not interfering with the siren effect. We've again got the sound shift from waves, which is pitching the sound down one whole octave. The resonator is bringing out some of the mid-range detail. As I just said, it's a low frequency centered sound and gets lost in the mix if those mid-range characteristics are not brought out. This sound is then being compressed really hard to bring out some of the nuances captured in the recording, similar to using parallel compression, for example. As we've got a low sound, it makes sense to add in something much higher, and that is what the siren aims to do. Here's how it sounds before and after the effects. So first, before. And then with the effects. I've got two of the sound shifter plugins on here, pitching the sound up an octave each, so 2 octaves total. If you're wondering why 2 separate plugins were needed, it's because each only allows a maximum increase or decrease of 12 semitones. These shift the sound up above everything else in the mix to again provide some extra effect. The EQ here is removing everything under 100 Hz, as we do not want this interfering with the mechanical sound. It is also controlling the super high frequencies above 10 kHz, ensuring nothing is hurting our ears or sticking out of the mix. The flangers, like the others, are just here because they sound great on this kind of effect. The autopan is spreading the sound out, essentially doing the opposite of what we did to the mechanical sound. It's important that each of the added extra sounds complement each other, or are the opposites of each other, to create maximum effect. The last part of the project are the 4 effects or return channels. As I said at the start of this chapter, this project was created in collaboration with Diego Moreno, who created these effect returns. I'll play you the tone with the effect returns off, and then I'll turn them on one by one to demonstrate what each is adding to the sound. So first, this is the Shepard tone with everything turned off. So, as you can hear, the last three are making obvious audible differences, while A is just giving everything a bit more width for added effect. And that is the complete project. The Shepard tone itself is fairly simple, but if you want to enhance it into something you could perhaps use in a project, it gets a little more complicated and interesting. For the third and final segment of this tutorial, I'd like to show you some examples of the Shepard tone being used in compositions. This may perhaps inspire you to try something in your own compositions, but it should also enable you to be able to spot when the illusion is being used. I've got a couple of different examples of how the Shepard tone has been used inside of compositions. You may have seen the Shepard tone in the news recently, or a sudden influx of videos and articles on the subject, and that's because Hans Zimmer used the auditory illusion when writing the score for the recently released film Dunkirk by Christopher Nolan. If you haven't seen the film, don't worry, there will not be any spoilers in this video. In an interview with UK Business Insider, Nolan explains how a lot of the soundtrack was actually built around the Shepard tone. Quote, "The screenplay has been written according to musical principles. There's an audio illusion, if you will, in music called a Shepard tone, and with my composer David Julian on The Prestige, we explore that and based a lot of the score around that. And it's an illusion where there's a continuing ascension of a tone. It's a corkscrew effect. It's always going up and up and up, but never actually goes outside of its range. And I wrote the script according to that principle. I interwove the timelines in such a way that there's a very continual feel of intensity, increasing intensity. So I wanted to build the music on similar mathematical principles. Very early on, I sent Hans a recording that I made of a watch that I own with a particular insistent ticking, and we started to build the track out of that sound, and working from that sound, we built the music as we built the picture cut. So there's a fusion of music and sound effects and picture that we've never been able to achieve before." End quote. You can hear the effect in the track The Mole, taken from the Dunkirk soundtrack. I can't play it for copyright reasons, but it's listed and linked at the correct times below. Even the famous sound of the Bat Pod is made from a Shepard tone. Check it out. The guys over at Vox have also put together a fantastic video explaining how the Shepard tone works, with more examples of it being used inside of compositions and games. It's listed and linked in the description below. We're all familiar with visual illusions, but audio illusions on the other hand seem to be a much rarer commodity, but perhaps even more interesting. And being able to create one and use it in your own compositions for, say, a background drone or building the intensity could come in pretty useful one day, and not to mention, it's pretty damn cool. That concludes this tutorial on the Shepard tone. I hope you all learned something, and remember to grab the project if you'd like to play around with one yourself. I'll be around as always in the comments below, so please drop any suggestions or questions you may have for future tutorials down there. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. I'm out. Peace.